now I would not be talking to you had I not had that conversation. Because at every point in this journey, I've needed the help of others to help me succeed. It's not been just me. Like, life is a team sport. What eats away at people in general is the what if. It's the I wish I did that. Had I done that and I had an answer for it, no problem, because I did the thing. I was brave, I was strong, and that is more valuable than potentially the outcome. I can't describe that feeling. I wish I could give someone a flavour of it, because it was enough for me to decide in that moment, I want to do this forever. I want to do this forever because I don't have to hide anymore. I can be authentically me. My name's Roblin. I am a endurance coach, an ultra runner, and founder of Why We Run, which is a multi-stage ultramarathon brand. I'm also an ex-professional rugby player, but I kind of try and leave that out every now and again. It's like, that was past me. Okay. That's not me now, but yeah, that's who I am.
I feel like we're probably gonna touch on past you, present you, future you, probably in this conversation. So I think let's start there, because as you say, we'll move away from that. But I think it is important to kind of touch on that part of your kind of athletic background that kind of led you to this position, right? You're a Welsh boy. Rugby's kind of ingrained in all of us. So was that kind of how you got into the sport initially, growing up in Wales, and then you were in an academy, right, and then playing professionally as well?
Yeah, sure. So I started playing rugby really young. I was a footballer first. So I played football from kind of the age of 6. Played for my local village, Killeen, with my cousin. My uncle was the coach. So we had a great time, really close knit community in Wales, which is really lucky to grow up around, really. And as I got older, got into rugby in school, realized I was quite good at it, and enjoyed that for a few years, and then kind of fell away from it. I went to secondary school, and it's kind of the you think the most cliche thing in Wales is that there's rugby everywhere. But my secondary school, we didn't have a rugby team because we didn't have enough players in that year to play rugby. So kind of left rugby until I was 14. And at that point, I'd been playing football every weekend, and a lot of the footballers decided to play rugby as well. And they were from a different school in Killeen, because I went to a Welsh school. And basically joined the club and had a year of playing football and rugby. We had quite a strong team, realised that couldn't do both, and it was the decision to either go into rugby or football, and chose rugby, and the rest is history, really. From 16 then got picked up by the local region, the Dragons, and fell into that system where 3 times a week, 16-year-old. I don't know how my parents did it, honestly. I'm so grateful for what opportunities they gave both me and my brother, because we swam as well when we were kids, so kind of 3 times a week as well. And it just, like, I mean, I've just become a dad, so the sacrifice that they made for us is unbelievable. But no, back to rugby, and fell into the system where I was training 3 times a week before school, playing for the Dragons every couple of weeks, every month, from under 16s level, and just followed the system. Picked up the academy and played senior rugby for Newbridge at 17, and then for Newport, and then for the Dragons at 19, and the rest is history, really.
When did you hang up the boots, and why was that decision made?
So I hung up the boots in 2020. COVID kind of forced my hand. Rugby was a funny one for me. I had a lot of success at a very young age. I was very lucky to represent my country at under 18s level, and under 20s level as well. It's actually a funny story where I played in the under 20s. I think 2011. I'll show my age now. 2011 World Cup, and we faced the Baby Blacks. We played against the All Blacks, and my generation, really, like the England team was like the star-studded team. You see George Ford, your Owen Farrell, your Elliot Daly's, your Billy Vunipola, the Mako Vunipola. Funnily enough, they grew up near where I lived in Pontypool. So I played Gwent youth, I think under 11s with Mako and Billy, which is hilarious. Not that they'd know that. And in this 2020 World Cup, we played against the All Blacks, and I was part of the team that had the greatest ever defeat. And the irony is, I had quite a good game, so I think back to it quite fondly. But we lost 92-0 to New Zealand during that World Cup. But that was hilarious. But anyway, I had a lot of success when I was as a youngster. I started playing every week, really, for the Dragons when I was 19 years old, and that continued for a few years until I left the Dragons. I had a nasty year of injuries, which seems to be such a common occurrence that happens in sport. It's savage, it's ruthless. The competition for your place, even on a weekly basis, you're competing against your teammates, your mates, right? It's quite a stressful environment. Because ultimately, if you're not playing on the weekend, then you're not there to. That's your job. Like, you're not able to represent yourself to get a job, and there is no support for the individual in rugby. If you don't get a job, that's it. You're out, done. There's not like there's no unfair dismissal in the world of professional sport. So at 23, I ended up moving away to Jersey. And as I moved away from Jersey, from the Dragons, then I went it's still classed as professional, but it was a league down, and it was the championship in England. And I had great 3 years in Jersey. I think I saw, it was the first time moving away from home. And as much as I loved rugby, I think I loved the lifestyle in Jersey more. So I ended up staying there for 3 years and never really made it back to the top level then. It's interesting. I think back and reflect back on my rugby career, and I was good. Right? I had all the attributes, all the skills. That you had to be a professional and to play at that level at a youngster. But I'm not sure whether I ever really fit into that environment, which is a really interesting thing to say. Yeah, but ultimately, so I'm going off on there's so many tangents I could go off on here, so I'm trying to catch myself.
Love a tangent, mate. Love a tangent.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get into them in a minute, but yeah. So I had 3 years in Jersey. Ended up having a nasty concussion at the age of 25, and that was kind of a key pivotal moment for me in my rugby career, because suddenly you see the sport in a new light. You see it as a means to an end rather than like, this is my everything. And it scared me. I was knocked out on the field. I caught a high ball. And as I should have given it, I did the lesson. I should have given the ball to the 15 who was next to me, but I caught the high ball and I went to step the guy coming to tackle me. And unfortunately, it was a total fluke. But as he came to tackle, he came in quite high, and his head connected with my temple. And I was knocked out before I hit the ground and had a seizure and couldn't see single vision for about 2.5 months. And that was quite a scary time. And in the aftermath of that, I made a full recovery. I ended up leaving Jersey that year. Fell out with the coach for that's another story for another time. And ended up moving to London to play for Ealing for a year. And had a year at Ealing, 2 years at Bedford Blues, which is like a mini Wales, funnily enough. My career as the coach, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
And then lockdown hit, and it was almost from that point at 25 years old of having that nasty concussion, recovering from it, and kind of reviewing my reason for playing. I was always looking for a way out. I was qualifying. I tried to qualify as an accountant, realized that was not for me. But as I was playing, and every year the easy decision was to sign another contract. I think I was too afraid of change. There's a saying, I think the pain of change was greater than the pain of remaining the same. So it was easier and less scary for me to stay and do another year of rugby because I knew it. I was comfortable in where I was. That it was easier to sign a contract until COVID hit. And COVID provided this blank canvas, this opportunity, I suppose, to step away from the sport. And it was decided by a few reasons as well. I wasn't very lucky with the furlough system. I'm not sure if anyone can remember that. It seems an age ago, but I wasn't very lucky with the furlough system, which kind of forced my hand as well. But that was the catalyst for change. And looking back at it, I'm so grateful it happened like that, because I'm not sure I would have had the courage to change had that not prevented itself, which is another interesting thought. So, yeah, that's kind of the rugby journey in a bit of a full circle. Without getting into too depth.
It's so difficult, isn't it, when you're in a position, and I'm sure lots of people listening to this can relate to it, where, as you say, change is something that you know probably needs to happen, but isn't happening because the easy decision is for it not to happen. And as you said, then when people are sliding a contract under your nose and saying, "Come on, do you want one more year, Lou? Like, it's fine. We see you as an asset to the club. We'd love to keep you." this is the money we're going to pay you. You're like, well, look, it's there. I'm good at this. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it forever type thing. But you also mentioned then that you almost knew that you wanted to step away from sport. And I guess this isn't a normal job, right? This is a job where you could actually get hurt if you're not 100% in it. And obviously, even if you're 100% in it. So it's quite a
Yeah.
dangerous situation, I guess, to be in that instance when you kind of know that you don't want to be doing it anymore, but you're kind of just doing it because change is difficult.
I think there's yeah, 100%. I mean, look, there are so many, and also, I mean, what a job to have. Like, even though I wasn't where I knew I could be as a professional, I knew that I had the potential to be at the top level because I was there at 19 years old.
Mm.
So but at the same time, like, you get to put your boots on every day, go outside, run around. Your job is to train. Your job is to play. And if I think about my character as an individual, like, I am a big kid. Like, playtime is where I love the most. It's probably why I'm drawn to trail running so much, because it's essentially just running around and splashing in puddles, running up and down hills, like, so I think it was really difficult to step away. Yes, it was an easy yes, but there was still so much of it that I loved. So I was torn between this lifestyle, the fear of being sat behind a desk all day and what that would look like to my life and how that would change me as a person. So it was an interesting time, and it's sad because I looked back in the months following rugby. I really struggled because I'd done it for 10 years. I was professional for 10 years. It's all I knew. So stepping away was really hard, but it's sad because I resented who I was when I was playing rugby. But it wasn't because I was a rugby player. It was because I resented the decisions I made, and I resented the person I was because I didn't stand up for myself. Was I, like, maybe not on the field? On the field, it was the opportunity to. Like, I loved that playtime. It was the moments off the field where I really looked back and thought, man, like, I wasted opportunity there. I wasted that chance. I should have spoke up for myself here, and that was what's really sad about it. And the more time that passes, the more lessons I learn, the more I can reflect back on positively and think, "Fuck, how lucky I was. How lucky was I that I got to do that?" But in the immediate aftermath of retiring, it was really hard because it was like, what an opportunity you wasted because of things that you could control that you didn't do, that you could have been brave. Like, why weren't you brave? And then the mind goes back into, oh, well, you were a kid, like, you didn't know these things. But I think as a rugby player, it's very dangerous. Like, not dangerous is the wrong word, but in my experience, I didn't really grow up. You're in an environment with 30 blokes. You basically just play every single day. You love life, and I don't think I really matured as a human being as much as I could have if I was in the corporate world, in a normal job where you interact with other genders in the daytime, but they're just 30 blocks. But I think, so I think a shock to the system when I retired also was how much growing up I needed to do, and how much reflection, how much self-awareness I needed to develop to get myself through the next part of life. But there was lots to unpack, and again, it's why I'm so grateful that I kind of leaned into this running space, because it gave me everything that I needed to, and all of the space I needed to learn those lessons at the same time.
I think identity obviously is like a tricky thing when you've been doing something so long as well, right? Like you said, you were a professional for 10 years, and not only a professional for 10 years, but rugby, not only as a Welsh person, but as somebody that grew up with it from a very, very young age before you even turned professional. That would have been part of your identity, right? People would have looked at you, people from home, people from Jersey, people from Bedford, people from Ealing, and looked at you and said, that's he's the rugby player.
Yeah,
And like when
yeah,
you're not the rugby player anymore, that's a bit weird. And that's across everything. If you get made redundant from a job and you've been doing a job for so long, that's your job, and people see you as having that job and you don't have that job anymore. That's a weird kind of thing to then have to try and deal with and process.
yeah. So who am I without that?
Yeah.
And It's why I think I still catch myself even at the start of this interview. Oh yeah, and I'm an ex-professional rugby player, because that is still, and it's still who I am. I was that person, so I am that person. I am the accumulation of every single experience that I've had in my life, and it should be celebrated. And I'm at a point now where I can't celebrate that, because I understand the values, I understand the lessons, I understand I can do what I can do in the running space, or I could do it in the way I could because of those experiences, because of the and even as a job now, and my role as an insurance coach and helping people, I'm able to relate to people on so many levels because of the experiences I've had in those high pressure, high stress environments where every decision you make is scrutinized, every decision you make is seen by so many people. There's pressure, so having the ability to deal with pressure, understanding how much hard work and discipline goes into achieving a goal. Like there are so many intricacies, and there are so many lessons that rugby has taught me, that I wouldn't be the person today now had I not had those experiences. So again, yeah, it's about coming full circle, and making peace with who you were and accepting who you are now, to be able to plan what you do moving forward in a way that does serve you. That so now that you do have this level of self-awareness, and you know who you are, and not that, and that's always going to change, right? Like that changes with every period of your life. I mean, it's changed so much now. I had a bit of an existential crisis recently because we've had a baby. It's amazing, but it brings up all of these things to light again. It's that same question you said: who am I now? Who am I now? I'm a dad. Like, what type of dad do I want to be? And how does that affect this work, dad, life, challenge, balance? And who do I want to be? These are big questions.
We're probably
But it's
we're
fun.
probably
It's
not
fun to talk about and think about.
probably not going to answer them all on this pod, man. But it's really
No.
good to sit back and reflect, isn't it? And kind of think of that time. And when you said a moment ago, you were talking about why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I ask those questions? And maybe it's that opportunity versus talent type debate that is another thing that we could delve into. But I think without obviously having those experiences, and those experiences being exactly what they were, you wouldn't be in this position, would you? So it's always weird to kind of look back and think, I wish I had done that, or I wish I had stood up for myself or stepped up in that instance, because maybe that could have been a negative thing. We always see those things as positive, don't we? We always see those if I did do that thing, that would have been a positive change to my life. But you're sitting in front of me right now and flying, right? You're a dad, new dad, you've got your business, you've done all these incredible things, which we'll get into as well. Everything has led you to this point, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool. And do you know, I don't think I've ever really, you've articulate that really well. I never, it's not often that we think back and think, oh, what if that decision actually wouldn't have led to something positive? Because we'll never know, and we romanticize, and we think about what could have been, always in that could have been amazing. But you're right, it could have been the total opposite, and it could have been the totally wrong thing. I think what eats away at people in general is the what if, and I think that's something I'm very aware of now. Is if there is something that you're curious about, if there is something that you think, oh, in 6 months' time, I'm going to wish I said that, or if in 6 months' time, I wish I would have said yes to that. It's the I wish that we start to paint a picture of, and I think there are so many. That's again a reason why I look back and I wish I did that. Had I done that, and I had an answer for it, no problem, because I acted. I did the thing. I was brave. I was strong, and that is more valuable than potentially the outcome. It's the not knowing that eats away at us, and that's something that again, very conscious of carrying into whatever we do next. I don't ever want to look back and think, oh, I wish I'd just done that, but I'll never know now.
Yeah.
And that's potentially a missed opportunity. I think that's the key lesson to come from my younger self in that capacity, I suppose.
I like that. Yeah. And you've said it very well there. The what if, it's that regret thing, isn't it? That everybody always talks about. You don't want to have regrets, but I think inherently we're always going to have some sort of regret. So it's because you're always going to have been able to go down the other direction or the other path. And yeah, no, it's definitely something that I think a lot of people think about when it comes to decisions. But at the end of the day, a decision is a decision. You have to go one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about obviously moving forward out of rugby, stepping out of that space and into where you are now. That transition, had this always been something you've been interested in? Obviously, you've always been into fitness and training and you're a pro athlete. So, like, you've got that
Mm.
dedication, you've got that mindset, you've got that grit, you've got that understanding of athletic endeavor. But when did you first put on a pair of trainers not to be like, I'm doing this to get fit for rugby?
It was obviously lockdown happened really quickly. Everyone knows that, and we had one opportunity to get out every day. And I think for me, the feeling of training that is more than any, it means more to me than anything else. So like, I think running was the obvious choice when you have no equipment at home. It's the only access to the outdoors that you have. So I remember picking up a pair of trainers and just going for a run. Like I was never a runner. Like I ran as part of rugby, but would never go and choose to go and put a pair of trainers on and go for a 5K. Like it just wasn't me. And then lockdown came, and I thought, you know what? I need a challenge. Well, I'm just going to go and run a half marathon because I was just, ego was like up here. I was just like, why not? I'm just going to go and challenge myself. And just, I got humbled. Ankle went out in that half marathon run. Couldn't run for a few weeks, and thought, okay, maybe this is a little more serious. But at the time, I was talk about transitioning that. At the time, I had an e-commerce business selling coconut balls,
Okay.
which was which was inspired by a trip to Bali with my partner in 2019. Um, yeah, classic stereotypical rugby player goes to Bali, comes back a spiritual vegan, and then comes home and launches a business selling coconut balls. And I don't know if you remember at the time, but like the weather was amazing, and there was a bit of a coconut ball craze at the time. And I was one of the businesses that had a coconut ball brand. But that ultimately, that wasn't serving me in the way, and it had maybe 6 months of doing really, really well. I was, oh my God, why are people buying so many coconuts? It's amazing. And I thought it could potentially be my future. And I was planning in a way for it to be that next step in life. Full control of what I was doing. I was bought into the lifestyle. I was learning so much, and it was great. Do you know what? It was a really positive experience, even though I buried too much money into it, and it was put me in a bit of a sticky financial situation. I'm really grateful I did that because it gave me the opportunity to explore myself behind a mask. I could explore the benefits of plant-based living. I could explore sustainability. I was learning about the ethical sides of life really via a business selling coconut balls. So I could talk freely as Cocobana. I could talk freely and write blog posts on this and that. And it was never Lewis Roblin, so it was never connected to me. And it helped me really explore who I was in a way behind a mask. So it was a really positive experience. But ultimately, life started to happen again. The weather changed at winter. Do you remember we had that amazing summer? So everyone's outside all day. It was really romanticized to have your smoothie balls from a coconut ball. But then the weather changed. People were coming back to life, and sales dropped dramatically to the point where I couldn't serve myself. And I started telling myself that same story. I'd failed. I'd failed this. I can't. Like it was very themes of worthlessness, of loneliness as well, of doing something on your own. And running became a tool. Not that I was aware of it at the time, but running became a tool for me to start to run away from and look for an escape from the pain that I was feeling on a day-to-day basis, because it hurt to be in that situation. It was a struggle every single day, and I was getting no reward for that struggle. So running was like a temporary relief. It was that drug that was just like the endorphins just helped turn down the volume of all of those other feelings. So I lent into it. Yes, because it helped me feel good. Yes, it was like having a little goal, something you were improving on. So it was a haven outside of everything else. To the point where I decided to a friend of mine introduced me to a certain David Goggins. Not that I met him in real life, but his book Can't Hurt Me. And I buried myself into this book, and I was so inspired by the story, by how he came from nothing and I was able to take control and turn his life around, and the experiences of the Navy SEALs and everything you've talked about. It was just like wow, I'm inspired. And it was the first time I'd ever heard the concept of ultra marathons as well. But I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but David Goggins has a 4-4-48 challenge.
Yeah.
So it's run 4 miles every 4 hours, 48 hours. And at the time, two things. At the time, a friend of mine, Jeff Smith, who is the founder of a charity, Big Moose, which I'm sure I'll get to in a minute when we start talking about therapy.
Jeff's been on the
Um,
podcast years ago, actually.
has he
He was on when
really?
he was. What did he do? He did something a while ago. Did he do 10K every day for
Everest.
a little bit of time or something like that? He's done Everest as well. But he was on. I mean, I'm talking years ago now. But yeah, he's a legend. Legend.
He's one of the most influential people in my life as of the last 5-6 years.
Okay.
He is probably him and Chloe, who founded Big Moves. They are probably the reason I'm chatting to you now as well. So I owe them everything. They're just the best people. And if you've not had Chloe on the podcast, I'd get Chloe on as well, because
I don't think Chloe
she
has
in
been
her,
on.
yeah, honestly, Chloe in herself, as an individual and what she's achieved, and she's amazing. Anyway, but the 4-4-48, Jeff had just done it in the December, and he encouraged me to have a little go as well. And I was also, so that's the first thing. The second thing, I was living with Steph, my partner, and her parents in lockdown. We'd what do you call it? Shielded?
Bubble, was it? Was it a bubble?
Bubble, that's it. Yeah.
Weird.
So we
like
kind of
those words, like,
bubbled.
do you remember? Like everyone was like, "Oh, are you in my bubble? Are we in a bubble? We're in a bubble." Like,
yeah. And people got really particular about bubbles.
They did.
Yeah, rightly so as well. It was a scary time. But I was living with them, and very sadly, Steph was meant to run the London Marathon for her granddad, Roy, who had Alzheimer's, and she was going to raise money for Alzheimer's Research UK. But sadly, the marathon was postponed and postponed. And thought, I'm living under the roof. How can maybe I can use this challenge and running as a way to give back to them. I think one of my, without sounding too altruistic and like Miss Worldy, but like one of my core values is very much, I want to help people. I've always been the same as a kid. Even though as a kid I was boisterous and I wanted to play all the time, when I was often excluded for wanting to play, which probably taps into why I don't speak up enough for myself. I want to help people. So I was in a position where we're shielding. They're doing something really amazing for me. So how can I give back to them in a time of need? So I decided to try and raise some money and first time I've actually used social media as well. I didn't have a following before Steph. The only reason I have a following is because of her, but I ended up with around 5,000 followers as a result of just being her boyfriend. So Instagram works, isn't it? So I had an opportunity to potentially influence and inspire other people as well. So it's like, okay, let's try and do something with this. And I decided to give myself 4 weeks to train for this 4-4-48, and because nothing else was going on, and I could use running as this tool now to avoid the pain of running a coconut ball business. That still makes me chuckle that I did that. I wear candles as well; they were nice. So I set myself a training plan. It was basically to run 4 miles, and I had picked a loop, and it was like, I'll do 4 miles on maybe 4 times a week, and on the weekend I'll do back-to-back days. I'll start with 2 and 2 every 4 hours, and I'll start then the weekend after 3 and 3, 4 and 4. And I got to a point where I felt really fit. I thought, okay, I'm ready for this. And not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to speak to the charity, and I'm going to see if I can speak to them and find some stories and tell some stories and try and highlight some of the amazing individuals that have to deal with this disease, and shine the light on them. So essentially built this plan around raising money over the weekend. I didn't set myself a target, but raise money over the weekend, but just share my experience, have people run 4 miles virtually with me if they can, and just make some noise about it. And was blown away by the response, was blown away by the stories, was blown away by people's willingness to give. And long story short, the challenge went really, really well. I created spreadsheets. I laid out all 12 bits of kit. I prepped every single meal. I prepped smoothies for the night that had beetroot and all these random things in it. I was fully into the plant-based stuff then. I'm still plant-based now, but I was fully into the plant-based. So I was putting beetroot, I was putting all these different ingredients in there. And it was seamless. And I'd go to as far to say it was easy because my planning and my prep was so meticulous, and everything, it was just about turning up. And it reminded me of rugby. Like, I'd done all the prep work. All I had to do was show up, and I know how to suffer. Like, I know how to work hard. So it created the perfect storm for me to go and express myself in a way that I hadn't done before in this running world. And it was all new. It was all magical because, like, it was still me, but in a new form. Like, it was just really, like, it was amazing. I remember finishing feeling a sense of euphoria, maybe not, because there wasn't like I didn't feel euphoric, but I just felt a calm satisfaction and pride from having I raised £10,000 in 2 days. So having raised that amount of money, knowing that that was going to help people. Yes, I had a lot of dopamine hits as well because socials did really well. I gained a lot of followers, and people don't talk about that, but yeah, that felt really good. And I think without really being totally aware of, I'd created something that now I reflects in why we run now. But ultimately, I did the thing, but I didn't learn from it. I remember finishing it, having that amazing experience, and then the next day, got back at my desk and started selling coconuts again. It was like, what just happened? Like, and it was maybe my first experience of the blues, where you achieve this incredible feat. You're so proud of what you've achieved, and then you go back to work the next day and it's like, oh, what now? So that was really interesting. But I'm lucky that in the aftermath of that and the chain of events that had happened as a result of doing something scary and putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, sharing stories, like acting in alignment with your values, maybe for the first time, which I think I was totally aware of values at that point. I don't think I knew what a value was. And I was 28, so I was very underdeveloped psychologically. Or emotionally, whatever you want to call it. And lucky for me, a friend of Steph's, who I didn't know at the time, Hannah Tilsley, she worked for a company called Ultra X, and in the weeks following, in the August, I think she said, "Oh, Steph, I've seen Lou's done this running. Does he fancy a challenge?" Bingo. Like perfect storm to hide away and to run away from the coconuts again. And it was a 125 kilometer 2-day ultra in the Peak District, and it was, again, just, I said yes in an instant. It was I can't explain it in a better way. And it was a perfect opportunity to run away from the pain that I was feeling. And that kind of sparked the ultra journey then.
I
Yeah,
love
madness.
the 4448 is the story I've heard over and over and over again in people in the ultra running space, like that being the first thing that they did, because what I love about it is it's such a good gateway. Like that is such a good gateway into everything else because you can do it from home. It gives you the ability to do what you did in essence and prep and be very, very clear on what you're doing outside of the actual running. And also, it's a very impressive achievement. Like we can't hide away from like running 48 miles in 48 hours is it's a lot. It's a lot of distance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's such a good gateway. And yeah, anybody that hasn't done it and is like maybe thinking about doing something, it is a good first thing to do to get onto then, if you want to do the multi-day thing like Lewis has done, giving that a crack too. It does genuinely sound like the perfect storm, man. Like it's hearing your story kind of from A to, we're not quite at B yet, but we're in the midst of that kind of journey. Even though, you had this business and it did well for a bit and then, it didn't and do as well for a longer period of time. And then you kind of whatever step away from it or whatever. Without that, you again wouldn't be here, would you? It's like if that coconut business had completely taken off and it stayed at those first 4 months of turnover and profit, then you may have just stayed at that point and done that forever. And that's looking back at things like that, that becomes a weird thing to reflect on because it's like that thing at that time caused you so much pain, I would imagine, financially, emotionally. You're thinking, I'm a failure. And now, without it, you're like, I won't be this person. I won't have all these medals hanging up around the house, these photos, these memories, which is, I think sometimes reflecting on stuff like that can be quite a weird thing because at the time it hurts so much when something's failing.
For sure. And I mean, the way I see it as well is that every experience I've had up until now has basically been like a full circle journey to come back to like understanding who I really am.
Yeah.
It's been a process, maybe a process of elimination, even you could look at it like that. But the rugby was part of who I was, but I wasn't truly who I was. I'm And I'm still learning. I'm still on that journey into like really settling into who I am and being more and more comfortable with that person. Being confident enough to stand proud and own all of myself. Whereas as a rugby player, I couldn't stand proud and own all of myself. There are parts of me that I shielded. There are parts of me that I hid out of fear of being excluded. Out like little things like I'm a muser, right? I grew up around music. My parents are both in bands and stuff, and I play a bit of guitar, play a bit of piano, sing a bit. And whenever I did that in the rugby space, I got shot down.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can I truly express my true self, like in that environment? I couldn't. So, if anything, the rugby was always going to be a means to an end because I could never be me. In the coconut bowl business, that was the first time I could really explore myself, but there was still a mask. As much as I could explore another part of who I am like that, I couldn't fully let go because I was afraid of, and I was still in that rugby environment for a year as well. I started it when I was still playing rugby. There was a point when we were in the flat with my mate and the flat was full of coconuts. It's brilliant. I was lucky. I lived with that. I lived with a guy called Ollie Curry. Still, really, really great mate. I'm going to his wedding this weekend actually. But we were lucky. We were aligned, so at least we had a safe space, him and I, because he started a business selling gym equipment as well. So we could kind of get in that together. But anyway, but yeah, it's been a process of coming back, and now in this running space, it filters nicely into this 125 actually because standing on the start line of this race in the peaks, I had no idea what I was about to face. We had 4 weeks to prepare. I had 3 weeks. I met some lovely people in that lead up. Like Hannah was amazing. She's an amazing connect. She just put you in the right places, the right people. I met Renee McGregor on a training run. I met James Cook, who's now the race director for Why We Run, or the event director for Why We Run. We don't say race. We try not to get carried away. I met Ian Morgan, an ultra runner who's a lovely, lovely human, has been a part of our life for a few years. Met Brad, Brad's second name, I'm gonna kick him, but he's an S&C coach. Just met like a beautiful group of people that were so incredible, and I've been part of my life since. And so that was one part. So the community was the instant connection. I was like, wow, okay, I feel part of a bit of a team here, even though this is an individual sport. We're on a training run, but I stood on that start line. I was so underprepared. No idea what to face. But ultimately, it was that brutal. It was that tough. And I experienced so many highs, so many lows that by 30K to day one, I had no energy to be anything other than me. I had no energy to put a mask up. I had no energy to hide my emotions. Like it's a classic when you're running with someone. There's a nice you tell someone your life story within 10 minutes when you're running with someone anyway. But when you're in an environment like the ultra environment, when you've got so much challenge, you might run with someone for a couple of hours and hear the life story, then you move on and you have your own space. But this race in particular, I had maybe 10% of the race with people and 90% on my own. And it was the best thing that ever could happen because I had the emotional journey. I had the highs and lows. I had the proving to myself that I could. I had this, I mean, again, this is probably a little bit egoic saying it, but it happened. I think I grade 1 tore my calf on day 1, yet had this like drive within me that I couldn't stop. Like I had to finish this thing. This was my opportunity to prove to myself that these last 10 years weren't for nothing, that I was something. And that it shouldn't get to that point. Like I should never have got to that point. And I remember being at the finish line and having this, 5K out, first of all. I remember seeing the finish line 5K out. So on the top of it, it was a beautiful day in September in the Peak District. Everyone was out walking the dog, walking their kids. It was lovely. And you've got a fully grown man that looks about a shell of himself, probably burnt, crying his eyes out because I've just seen, it must have, it was partly a comedy sketch. But for me, like, and having that outburst of emotion, I had it then and I also had it through the finish line. I couldn't pretend to be anyone else, but I was celebrated and I didn't win. I wasn't competing. But another thing, like I didn't have to compete against anyone but me. And the freedom in that coming from a professional sport where you're competing every single day and there is a cost of winning. Your mate loses out. Like the mate you spend every single day with, you're meant to be having a relationship with. If you win, they lose. Whereas in this ultra environment, when you win, everyone wins. Like, and I was like, what a feeling that is for me to be able to go and give all of myself and win. According to me, I didn't care whether I won or lost. I wasn't a professional athlete. The freedom that came with that feeling and the emotional relief, the euphoria, like it was just, it was like a drug. Like I've
Yeah.
never, I mean, I'm not a drug taker, never have been. But if I can't describe that feeling, I wish I could give someone a flavor of it, because it was enough for me to decide in that moment, I want to do this forever. I want to do this forever because I don't have to hide anymore.
It,
I can be authentically me without shame. I can be celebrated for giving my best. I can be celebrated for everything and all of who I am for the first time. And that feeling, man, like, whoa, really got me. So yeah, that was the catalyst for everything as well.
it's so powerful as well, that individualistic, individualistic part of running, right? Because, and you kind of touched on it there, but when you succeed, whatever success means to you, it's because you did it. But also, it's quite powerful that if something doesn't go that well, or if it didn't maybe play out in your head how you thought it was supposed to, that's also because of you, and in the 95 percentile anyway. Like, and that, when I say that's powerful, it's because then you can like actually look at yourself, learn from it, and address that. Whereas I think sometimes in team sport, and I'm sure you experienced this loads of times. In fact, you even mentioned it right in the Wales performance, with the Baby Blacks. You were like, I had a good game, but we got
Mm,
absolutely battered. Basically, it's
hmm.
like there isn't that. Like you could have the best game in the world, but if the 14 other men on the field don't, or the 14 other women on the field don't, then it's not your day. Whereas it's
Yeah.
so powerful in running and these individualistic sports, triathlon, cycling, swimming. Like, it is you against you. If it goes well,
Yeah.
you've done well. If it goes badly, it might be your fault, and that's not a bad thing because it means you can address it and move forward. Which is, yeah, it's not something you get anywhere else.
No, it's not. You have to take ownership and responsibility over it. But the
Yeah,
other part of it as well is that I know for this experience in this race, and I've learned since that learned differently since, but for this experience, like, I needed to finish that, and that need is an important word. I was driven by something that I didn't understand, and I needed that experience to learn about that. Whereas now I can go into something and I get to choose. I get to choose what race and what race I want to experience. I get to choose whether I want to race it or whether I want to just chill and have a good time. Like, now we can write our own rules. Like, we're not professional athletes. There isn't pressure on winning or losing. But how you define winning and losing is totally up to you. And that can change in an experience. Like, I was lucky enough to do UTMB last year. Um, and for me, I got lost in that success metric again. Like, there was pressure. We had a film done. And I all of a sudden created this environment that was like professional sport again. And I had a really negative experience until eventually I didn't, because I mean, I'm lucky I did finish it. But for 36, 35 hours, I was in a negative headspace because I set myself up like that.
yeah,
Um, it's funny how you go. Like, we always have to continue to. It's a bit like your mental health. Like, it's the same shit that comes up time and time again, and it's all just about relearning to manage them better and better and better. But yeah, Matt. So ultra is and this running space is, it really opened up a new chain of thought. It freed that it gave me freedom to see success in a different way and failure in a different way, because it was about giving yourself to these experiences irrespective of an outcome. The outcome didn't matter so long as you could put your hand on your heart and say, look, I gave everything. I gave all of myself to that experience. If it doesn't happen as you want it to happen, then, hey, look, that's life. That's what happens. Like, there are going to be obstacles and challenges that happen that are outside of your control. You don't see them, the curveballs that happen that you have to deal with and face with. But that's also what makes it fun. So
yeah.
there is, again, the amount of um even when races don't go your way. I remember the second ultra I did was Ultra X Scotland in the May, and I remember a particular section, because I'd done England. I'd had a winter of training. I did a 50K in the January, and this was in the May. And I had this another 225K, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to race this now. I've learned a lot, like, yada yada yada. That because it's probably worth saying I am one of the most competitive blokes you'll probably ever meet. I love competition. I really do. I think for me, it's not about the winning or losing. For me, it's more so about the competing. It's about
Yeah.
being in it and the excitement of like the just the game. But I'm a competitive person, and in the game of this 125k in Scotland, we hit a section after a really steep climb. It was May, and there was a blizzard on the top of one of these climbs in the mountain. It was crazy weather. The descent was really dangerous. So that got in my head. I was like, how are they letting us run? And it's trail running. Like there's many, like it's trail running. It's like
And then you go
there's
do
no rules.
UTMB. So yeah.
And yeah, I know that was a few years later.
Yeah.
But get to the bottom of the and there was the really boggy marsh to the point where if you don't hit a tuft of grass, then you're knee deep in mud. I remember getting like bogged down a few times where I almost lost my shoe, and I got so negative. I let it completely ruin my experience of the race. And it was only in the aftermath I thought, why the hell have I just let that ruin this adventure? Because that's what it is. It's an adventure. Ultra's an adventure. They're a great they're a perfect like simulation of life, really. And if you treat every like negative obstacle as you did like that as something that you blame the course for, like you're not taking responsibility for yourself. So like these lessons that you learn and as part of these races are so invaluable. But yeah, man, like wow.
It's crazy reflecting back as well. I've used the word reflecting a lot in this because I feel like we are literally doing that. We're talking back through the life story, right? But when you do think back to kind of like in essence, that's the chrysalis, isn't it, of where you are now? That's the beginning of the journey, like that first Ultra X race, like the 4448, that second Ultra X race, and as you say, with every single one, there's just that little extra bit of development. You would have learned a little bit when you did UTMB. You would have learned a little bit when you did the Ironman. You would have learned a little bit when you've done this and you've done that. Like, I would implore anybody that is listening to this and wants to kind of go and see the amount of stuff that Lewis has done to go to his Instagram, check out a load of stuff on there as well. And there's some amazing content through some amazing challenges. Because I feel like we could probably do a podcast series, to be honest, based on.
I forget how much
it's crazy.
I forget how much that. I do forget how much I've done the last few years, and I think it's probably apt to say that like I don't think any of. I'm very lucky that I had 16 years of professional sport. That meant that my body is probably much like more resilient than others that haven't had that. So, I went from zero to hero in the sport, and I understand my body at a level probably many people don't because of the experience I've had. So recovery, the density of my bones, like the strength of my tendons and ligaments, like the muscle. I think to go from that to what I did was extreme. And I'm lucky that my body's held up in the way it has, and that I've had those experiences. I've been very lucky. But ultimately, well, I was going to mention it, but what I skimmed over from England was kind of the real reason why my life has shifted so much as a result of ultramarathons. And it was, again, coming back to like pain and to mental health. I remember finishing the 125 in England, and I remember saying, I learned more about myself in 2 days than I had in 10 years. And that's true. It's really true. It was, insane. I couldn't find the word to describe it. But I remember the same as the 4448, getting home a few days later, sitting at my desk, and nothing changed. And because I was so unaware of the blues, I was so unaware of why I was doing what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to achieve from it. I just know that I had this thing and I had no idea what to do with it. So in the lull of it, and nothing changed, I got quite low, to the point where Jeff and Chloe, Chloe actually noticed maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, and offered Graham, who was the only therapist at the time, offered Graham's services to help me. And I have no idea what I said to her. I don't know how she picked it up, because I'm a positive dude. I'll speak to people and I'll hide. I think that's probably a trait from that, again, professional sport, where you're taught not to be soft. You're taught not to show emotion. And there's a time and a place for it. Like on the rugby field, when the chips are down and you need to show face, you need to show the opposition that you're strong, and you're like it's a game of psychology in itself. But when that bleeds into real life, that's when it gets dangerous. And I remember showing face. I don't know how she saw it and what I said, but she offered that support, and I sat on it for a few weeks. My initial reaction was probably that of, no, I'm fine. Like
Oh, right.
that. Thank you. I'm good though. Like there's
Okay.
and there are people that need it more than me, and that is such a toxic thing to think as well. Like, why am I not deserving of that help? Like, and I think a lot of people, like, and I've had a lot of conversations and chats about mental health now as a result of speaking up about it online. And a lot of people come with that same story. It's like, oh no, there's people that need it more. That is irrelevant. Like, if you need help and you need support, why are you denying yourself? Like, think of the person that you could become, that you could be, and how much you could help other people if you were in a better place. The people around you, it's a responsibility to yourself, but it's also, if your values that you like helping other people more, well, think about the other people when you're a better version of you as well. So anyway, that's another conversation for another time. But I remember 2 weeks afterwards and getting over my ego and actually reaching back out to Chloe and asking for help, which was the hardest, harder than any. It's harder than the ultra because it's you at your rawest, most vulnerable form. And I remember, I remember feeling so weak in that first therapy call with Graham, and exposing my weakness. Weakness. I say weaknesses. It's probably the strongest thing I've ever done. Like, at my weakest, I was able to find the strength to ask for help. The chain of events and the snowball effect of events that have arisen after asking for help. Now, seriously, now I would not be talking to you had I not had that conversation. Because at every point in this journey, I've needed the help of others to help me succeed. It's not been just me. Like, life is a team sport. Like, we are better together. We are stronger together. And not only was I running more ultras and made that decision I asked for help and asked for ways in which I could like learn more about myself, but also the chain of events that were happening, not only in the ultra space, but in my life around that. I was being braver. I was posting more on social media. I started to act on these impulses that I had, and I started to just, I evolved as a result of learning. I had to open Pandora's box and go there. I had to understand why I've got to the place I was. So I had to face those demons. I had to face myself. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of vulnerable moments. And every time I went back, it was hard. But the more I talked about it, the more I realized why I've got to the place I was now. Like, then I could help myself by not making those mistakes again, or correcting those mistakes, or just being a different version of me. And do you know what? I showed up differently. Like, there's a book called The Secret. I'm not sure if you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And it's about your energy, and it's about like the energy that you attract is the energy you get in return. And I think it's truer than ever. And the energy that was returning to me as a result of it, like, opportunities were presenting themselves alongside the running. I was putting myself out there. I was showcasing what I was doing. I was being vulnerable. I was talking, and opportunities came in return. And I had an opportunity then to work at a company called a CBD company for 3 months in the summer, and all of a sudden I started to become more aware of my values. I missed the team. I was lonely. Oh wait, I'm part of a team. I had an opportunity. I said yes to being part of a team. And yes, it only lasted 3 months. It's a funny story actually. I spoke up for myself in the company in a way that I would disagreed with one of the things that they were doing and how they would and basically spoke and thought there's a better way to do this, and it got me fired. And the irony is that that's what I should have done as a rugby player.
Yeah.
And now I've done it and put it into practice in real life, and I got fired. However, being fired was the catalyst for me starting my coaching, because throughout that time as well, and after I finished my ultra, and after starting therapy, I took a step back and looked at my life, and I was like, okay, who do I want to be? Because that's what therapy does. And I wanted ultramarathon running. I wanted that to be a part of my life. I didn't want to be at a desk. So, okay, I'll qualify as a coach. So I was learning and developing as a human as a result of all these things. And you can see the snowball effect things are happening. And so started coaching the back end of 2021. That was that back end of 2021. I sold my business, the coconuts, managed to get a little bit of money back for it. So it set me up for a few months so I could live and support myself. And then the coaching kicked off, and all of a sudden I was living in alignment with me for the first time. like really in alignment with me. And it took me until I was, well, how old would I have been? 31, 30. It took me until I was 30 to really find a path and find a life that was authentically me. And at the back end of 2021, then I felt like I was strong enough to be able to give back to Big Moose, and that was the kind of the start of the Why We Run story. Um, but I wouldn't be here in the way I am now had I not asked for help, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. Um,
It's
but I'm so grateful I did.
the learning. Inherently, we think we know about ourselves, don't we? Because we've lived in our bodies for however long we've lived in our bodies for. But actually, like a lot of people, and it is the story for a lot of people, I would say probably for everyone to an extent, until you actually start actually thinking about you as a person, you won't truly understand yourself because you can't. There's just too much that goes on in life. There's too many experiences. There's too many things that we've buried in our own heads or things that have happened. And, it's a protection mechanism. We decide we don't want to think about that. Let's bury that. Oh, that's a hard thing to think about. I don't really want to bring that up because it brings me this really uncomfortable emotion. Let's bury that. And it's actually until you sit down and you actually think about it and actually decide to, right, I'm actually going to understand why I do the things I do. Let me learn about myself, that you actually then realize, oh, this is how I live with me, which, yeah, it's such a powerful message, man. And I appreciate your like being so open with it as well.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's the same rhetoric. It's the pain of change and the pain of
Yeah,
remaining the
exactly.
same. Right. It's the same. It's the
Same
same
thing.
rhetoric, but in different environments.
I need to touch on why we run before we wrap this up, man, because obviously that is something that's massive now in what you do. Just for people that don't know exactly what Why We Run is, talk to me about
Cool.
that. And yeah,
Cool. So, Why We Run is a 250-kilometer multi-stage
casual.
charitable ultramarathon. But it was an absolute fluke how it came to be. And what's nice is that it came to be a lot of the themes that I've talked about like that. They are part of the formation of Why We Run. So, at the back end of 2021, where the coaching started, I was at a position where I felt like I could now give back to Big Moose. So I wanted to do something to honor what they've given me. I felt so grateful. So, and how was I going to do that? Oh, well, I'm going to run. I'm going to choose to run a ridiculous challenge. So, at the time I was, doing a lot of events with, Ultra X, and they've been really good to me. Fantastic company. And I went to the founders, one of the founders, Sam Heward. And at the time they had 5 250K ultra marathons across the year. And I asked Sam, I was like, Sam, has anyone ever run all 5 in a year before? And he's like, no, that's stupid. Why would someone want to do that? Can I try? So, so I explained the reasons behind it. I explained, what happened with Big Moose and why I wanted to do it. And, Ultrex were very, very generous in that they gave me the opportunity to do all 5 races, without paying entry fees, which was just something I will always, always be grateful for. So the 5 events were Sri Lanka in March, Slovenia in June, Ultrex Wales, which has been the second time I did the 250 in Wales in August. It's beautiful, such a gorgeous part of the world. You'll know it very well. Jordan in the desert in October, and then Mexico in the Copper Canyons in November. And that was one I was most excited for, because have you read the book Born to Run?
Yeah. In fact, my
I love Born
my
to Run.
my computer's like balancing on it. I can't get it out, but yeah.
There you go. So the characters Manuel Luna and Arnolfo, they ran the event the year before. So,
Oh, amazing.
like, to finish the year, to run some of the Tarahumara, it was just like this pinnacle. I was like, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. And so fast forward the year, like each event was just unbelievable. Like Sri Lanka, there's a big group of I ran with a lot of the guys from Runner, well now Runner. I'm not sure if it was Run Buddy. I think it was still Run Buddy at the time. But Ben Parker, Josh Patterson, and we were in the tent together. It was a fantastic experience. And that was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had, actually. We could do a whole podcast just on that race. I mean, being chased by buffalo, like seeing pythons in camp, like 40-degree heat, 100% humidity. It was just like survival like I've never experienced it before. So that was amazing. And then again, being in Slovenia, and then fast forward, I'm not going to go into detail, but each event was fantastic, and like each event taught me something new about myself. And as many ultras as I'd done at that point, I'd done a few in that short amount of time. It was amazing to me how I could learn something different in every single experience. It was just phenomenal. And most importantly, it was the people. I met people like who are now like friends, like / family for life, as a result of being in those environments together, where you're stripped back of all life's materialistic stuff that we think we value. You're eating dehydrated food every day, like you're in pain every single day, like you're running ridiculous distances, yet you've never been happier. Like it strips everything back to like what's really important, and it's having a goal, like doing something physical and doing it with people that like you genuinely care about and you connect with. It's connection and the pursuit of something that's bigger than you as well, because it becomes bigger than you during the week. And the people that you're racing by day 3, you have no inkling of racing by the end of it, because you've got nothing left to be anything other than just like get me to the end. But the journey from going to day 1, day 5, like again, I couldn't shout enough about the multi-stage environment. It's special. And I'll come on to that in a minute. But anyway, so race 1, 2, 3, back in Wales for August, and then in Jordan for the desert in October. Again, like if someone has an opportunity to go and run like in the desert, it's magical. The sand and the dune, it just feels like it's telling you a story as you're in it. That might be hallucinations, but it's just unbelievable. So with 6 weeks or 8 weeks before, I think it was 6 weeks before Jordan and then 2 weeks before Mexico, sadly, we had the email that Mexico was cancelled. And in that moment, we were presented with a choice, an opportunity. And either I set out to do 5 250Ks that year. So there was no way I wasn't going to complete that, because it meant so much to me. I knew why I was doing it, and I knew that raising that £25,000 and completing this was the only way I was going to do it. So we decided, like, okay, how are we going to do it? Luckily, I knew a few close friends that were running the race. One in particular was Renee McGregor. So, and Renee is a huge part of this story. Like we basically together, I asked her for help. There's that one theme. We asked lots of people for help actually for this. But we worked together and we ended up hiring a campsite in Bradford-on-Avon. For the week. They were closed actually. They closed at 31st of October, and it was the first week in November. So they opened it for us. We hired the campsite for the week and asked Instagram for help. And I said, I need 20 people to come and help me finish this thing. And I think I took a lot of inspiration from the Ultra X events as well, knowing how that felt, knowing how much of a difference it made when people joined you. I knew to use medics, I knew to use therapists to help support the runners, I knew to have volunteers. And I've asked Instagram for help, and 17 runners answered the call. Each and every one of them set up their own Just Giving page. And that's wild in itself, actually. Like with 8 weeks to go, I had 17 people say yes to running 250K in November in Bradford-on-Avon via loops. Like, fair play, like amazing. It's a lot. It's a big commitment. So like, it's gratitude. Like, it's unbelievable. And they arrived, and everyone set up their own Just Giving page. And I had my cousin film the event as well. So there's a film on YouTube about it as well. And it just became. I knew roughly what it would feel like because of what Ultra X is like, but we didn't make it a race. We made it just to complete the distance. And that seemed to unlock a new level of connection, because all of a sudden, like the rugby environment, when there's competition, there's friction, but there was no competition. So when people arrived immediately, there was no need to be anything other than themselves, because no one's competing against each other. It was about you. It was about the people versus the 250, rather than the people versus the people versus the 250. And I really don't know how to describe it, because it was on day 3, even though the tents were flooding, the weather was biblical. We had moments when when the sun came through and the rain was pissing it down, but the sun came through, and there was flickers of like rainbow light everywhere, and it's just like the universe is telling us something. Like we need to keep like this is. It was, you get really philosophical when you're 3 days deep into an ultra, but yeah, like finishing the week and like having raised £22,000 as well as a team, no one wanted to leave, despite the conditions, despite the brutality of it and the bleakness of it. Like no one wanted to leave because the bubble that we'd created was magic.
Yeah.
It was magic. And again, those people that were involved in the first one are still friends and involved now. Like it's just, but ultimately, like we did it because and we chose to do it again because what we created, it felt like we started some sort of like legacy here. And it was too powerful. It was too special not to try again. And so along with Big Moose, because Big Moose were very, very influential in this planning this as well. Along with that, we decided like this is something we'd have to try and do again. So we set out to do it again the following September, a little bit earlier in the year. We found a beautiful, through connections of Jeff, actually, we found a beautiful campsite on in St. David's on the Welsh coast called Celtic Camping, and created a ballot system, limited the numbers to a certain number, and we did it all over again. And the second year raised £36,000, and then that was kind of proof of concept.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is something that people want to do. This is something that's giving back, and one of the most powerful parts of it is that we know exactly where the money's going. So not only, I mean, what we say why runners are running for themselves, but they're running for something bigger than themselves as well. I mean, the values of the brand, the purpose beyond yourself, power and human connection, pursuits past physical and mental limits, together as one, and that there is something really human about it. It's one of the most human experiences. I don't know if that makes sense,
I think,
but it's a very human experience.
yeah, I think it does make sense. I think it makes sense, particularly if you've done something like this, because you kind of do understand a lot more about, I guess, what goes into it, and more importantly, what comes out of it. I think because you feel more. God, it's cliche to say you feel more alive, but you do feel more human, right? You feel like you just feel more present, and that's not just being
Yeah.
present in the race, but it kind of gives you more appreciation of being present in everyday life as well. So it makes total sense. And I know this has obviously been proof of concept and a thing that's carried on and on and on now. And I believe we're only a few days out from the next one, right? As we're talking.
It's next week, yeah.
Which is mad. So like this probably will go out after the next one happens, but it's a thing that is now a thing. This is going to be a thing for ages, forever, hopefully. And
I hope so.
The proof of concept is there, and the vision that almost probably became a vision because you were forced into it becoming a vision, as kind of which often is where the best ideas lie and come from, is now something that you hold on to, that you share the message of.
I think why it's special is because it's organic. None of it was planned. It was an opportunity, and there was a need to create it, and people responded. And I think it probably talks to the current. It probably talks to the current state of. I mean, I might be totally deluded, but I think it talks to the current nature of people in general. Like we are craving connection. We are craving real life experiences. I think I've spoken to a few people that the next epidemic is going to be a loneliness epidemic, the way things are going, and like it shines light on the value and the importance of in-person experiences and running. Like you guys will know yourself through the events you create. Like running is one of the most simple like things that people can do. Everyone could do it. I mean, everyone within reason can do it, and I don't want to sound insensitive. I don't know, man. Like I think what we've learned as well with why we run is it's never really about the running. The running is just the tool. Like personally, it's never really about the running either. The running was just the vehicle and the opportunity that I had, and it created space for me to discover myself. and to explore who I am on so many levels. Like the challenge of it, like I discovered new places, new worlds, new people, and it was about exploring me in those environments. It could have been something else. I could have used a different tool, but there's a freedom in running. There's a special freedom in it, and I think for those that are arriving at why we run and those that choose to do why we run, we see it every year. Like it's and in the feedback and in the reasons why, because we ask them why they do it in the ballot. Like we screen, we ask them why they do it. We make sure people are safe to run it as well, because like that is important to us. We don't want people just unintentionally breaking themselves. But we realize it's the running's just the tool. It's never about the running. It's about who you become, and it's about what you gain from the experience over and above it. Like, and that shows, and that proves itself in the way the community has stayed together after the event. I think in May this year, we had a group of 14, 15 of the YB runners from last year go up together to do a UTS. So that it is about the running, because it creates the space, it creates the opportunity for people, but really it's about something more.
Let's wrap up with this, man, because look, it'd be silly for me not to ask you. We've used that word help quite a bit, right? We've talked about asking for help, reaching out for help, in many different facets, whether it's kind of in somebody's mental health journey or in a journey that was something that you created personally that wasn't going to be able to finish without people's help. Like, if there is somebody listening to this right now and they're scared to ask for help, just doing that thing, like, what would you say to them? What would be your message?
I would say that asking for help does feel like the scariest thing in the world, but it is also the strongest thing you can do. And if you can find the strength and the courage and the bravery to speak up and ask for help, you'll be surprised as to the response that you get. Because if you think about it the other way around, if someone came to you and opened up and asked you for help, you'd want to be there. You'd feel grateful that they are. You'd say, "I'm glad you told me. Like, thank you for telling me." Because I think as human beings, we want to help people. I think it's part of like who we are. To be able to give a service and to be able to serve and to help someone else in need, it's one of the greatest gifts ever. And actually, it's a gift in someone, like if you asking someone for help is a gift for them too, because they then have the opportunity to serve you, and that makes people feel good. So I probably rambled a little bit on that answer, but yes, it feels scary to ask for help. But be brave, be bold, and honestly, in return, you're going to be rewarded with things that you never expected to happen.